Hi everybody and welcome to your TorFX Weekly Market Update. I'm Nathan Bray. I'll be your host. It's the 11th of April 2016. We have a bunch of inflationary data coming out this week. We're going to take a close look also at the euro against the US dollar. It's right up at the top of its range. Is it going to hold or is it going to fold there? And of course, the US dollar against the Japanese yen. I'll show you an example of where the central banks may have been losing control of this market. But first of all, let's go in and have a close look at the individual news announcements we need to be concerned with this week. Well, the week ahead is all about the data coming out in relation to inflation, and we'll have a look at those announcements individually in just a moment. But also we're finding currencies are not cooperating. They're actually moving in the complete opposite direction to what central bank policy has been dictating or suggesting would be best for us. And that's why I think it's important you always combine your technical with your fundamental before making a decision of getting out of one currency and into another. All right, so as we have a look at these individual news events, we do have a Fed announcement coming out that's tentative at this stage in relation to your interest rates. And then you've got your inflationary style data. So your core sort of CPI data are coming out right across the board. You've got the pound first, so that's 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday night. And then we've got your trade balance coming out in China. But to me, this is going to be the big evening. So have a look on Wednesday night, Australian Eastern Standard, your core retail sales on the US dollar, your PPI data, and of course your regular retail sales. For me, that's going to give us a really good indication of whether or not this Fed's inflation targets are going to be met. And then as we continue to move throughout the week, this Aussie dollar is sitting right up, or Aussie US dollar is sitting right up around a key level of weekly support becoming resistance. So is it going to hold there? Or as we saw last week, it actually fell out of bed around that 76 level late last week. All right, then you've got your official bank rate coming out on the pound. Now, remember, all the votes so far, it looks like it's all pretty much in favour of not really moving at all and staying around that 0.5%. Then we wrap up our inflation data with the core CPI and CPI data out on the US dollar, as well as your unemployment claims, fairly steady there, still up around that 270,000. But and then we finish the week off really with some Chinese data. We'll have a look at their GDP. It still seems to be reasonably strong, up around this 6.7%, but we'll have to wait and see. And of course, industrial production, how is that going? And we're looking for a fairly positive figure there as well. Finally, you've got your University of Michigan consumer sentiment. Okay, so that's the inflationary style news that you've got coming out this week. What I want to have a look at is just the Euro US dollar. So it's sitting right up at this major level of resistance there. You can see this is right at the top of the range. Is it finally going to break out of this range and hold? Or is the data going to dictate that we're going to see it absolutely fail here, as it's done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times over the last few years? So if you are looking at this euro here, or the euro against US dollar, make sure you've got your limits in place, and of course some stops in place depending on which way you're moving your money. Okay, now the only other thing I want to show you is this US dollar yen. Have a look at this. This is just a great example of, technically, it looks quite simple. Price comes up, fails at a key level as it has done previously. Very similar to the situation, say, that euro is against that US dollar. But the thing that's different here is you'll notice that at this time when this occurred, we had the US dollar actually raise interest rates after 8 years of being at 0% and tell us that they're going to go for a number of interest rate rises after that. And at the same time, or around the same time, the Central Bank of Japan said, well, we're going to go to negative interest rates. So you'd think the US dollar is going to climb and the yen's going to weaken, but in fact, the complete opposite occurred here. The US dollar weakened, the Japanese yen has strengthened, and that's wiped out trillions of yen worth of quantitative easing sort of policy as well. So, and of course that then has an after effect onto the Nikkei, where once you start selling shares on the Nikkei, which we've seen, of course, what are you left with? Well, you're left with yen, which further strengthens the yen. So it's really interesting times indeed. This is all from me. Have yourself a great week.